And it's that time of the week. It is Free Speech Friday time when we get a couple of free-thinking, free-speaking Kiwis or Mexicans. I've got nothing against Mexicans. And we talk about the events of the week and we throw some ideas around. And with us, both for the first time this year, we have our good friend from the New Zealand Initiative, Dr. Oliver Hartwich. Oliver, how are you, mate? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, very good. And my old mate from lobbying and from journalism, from the People's Republic of Dunedin, Mark Champion. Mark, how are you?
Oh, hola.
Hola. Okay. Okay, and you guys haven't met each other yet, have you?
No,
you'll get on. I'm sure you'll get on over the phone. Look, you provided the segue, Mark. The great Mexican standoff story that is absolutely obsessing our news media who are running around. I imagine Mikey Sherman's going to be ringing the United Nations today looking for war crimes charges to be brought against Shane Jones and Winston Peters. Oliver, firstly, and you're a foreigner, you can go home too. I looked at it and said this is just robust political debate. It was personally aimed at Menendez March, and he shouldn't be such a sookie babe and suck it up, Oliver.
Well, as do I, of course. I mean, as a German, I'm constantly offended by people mocking my accent, including myself.
See what happens when you wave your hand in a straight line, Oliver.
Well, yeah, and I do that regularly too, of course. But no, seriously. By the way, I've got a New Zealand passport too, so I don't quite qualify for that.
Okay.
I think we should just get over it. I mean, seriously, a little bit of mocking here and there is fine. I mean, that's why it's free speech, right?
Yeah.
I think in a free society, in a free society, everybody has an equal opportunity to be mocked.
Yeah, that's right. Mark, what gets me, the holier than thou and the press gallery running around with like chooks with their heads chopped off. Menendez March can scream from the river to the sea, encourage anti-Semitism, and him and his mates can dress up like terrorists in Parliament, and the collective press gallery journalists don't bat an eyelid.
No, but he still comes across as a crybaby whose only recourse was to appeal to the guy that he's constantly haranguing. So, he just needs to get in his box and get over it. Okay,
and neither of you got anything against me. I mean, I hate to say it to Mexicans, it's not meant to be insulting. They don't even qualify as an identifiable minority in New Zealand. As I said, I just think about cocaine, tacos, and tequila when I think Mexican. Mark?
Well, Sean, that's good. Yeah.
Do you know any Mexicans in New Zealand, Mark?
No, I don't actually. The closest I get to is Mr. Hernandez March.
Yeah, that's right. Do you know any Mexicans, Oliver?
They come in bottles and they're called Corona, and I prefer other beers.
All right. So while the press gallery has been concentrating like Billy-O on that story, it took the platform, I'm proud to say, to drag them into covering the John Minto story and this genocide hotline, or Hunter Jew, as I prefer to call it, hotline, that he set up last weekend and has genuinely outraged a genuinely threatened community in New Zealand. That is the expat Israeli and the Jewish community in New Zealand. Oliver, what did you think firstly of Minto's hotline? What do you think of it in general terms?
Well, I think it's despicable, especially the timing of it was despicable. On Monday, I attended an event in Parliament commemorating the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. And right around that time to start a hotline, basically hunting for Jews once again, I think that's at least bad taste. But you know what? Free speech, he can do whatever he likes. Yeah. But the one thing that really upsets me about this, I have never heard John Minto, maybe I've just missed it, talking about maybe Russian war criminals, the guys who committed the Bucha massacre 2 years ago, or any of the other human rights abuses on the planet. He only ever makes statements when it concerns Israel. And for me, that selectiveness is the definition of an anti-Semite.
Yeah. Mark, you like I will remember Minto, and he had some cachet, some reputation in New Zealand because of his involvement in the anti-Springbok tour movement in 1981. And I observed earlier this week, whatever my goodwill or my feelings of support for him, it's pretty well evaporated with this.
Well, look, I look beyond John Minto on this issue, and the real concern for me was the way in which the mainstream media covered this. There was no attempt to provide opinions that questioned Minto. It was just simply a straightforward statement of fact that you would never get if the roles were reversed, and also the very limp response from the government.
Well, yeah, Winston condemned it. I don't think, and Luxon kind of condemned it, and Chippy kind of did. The Greens, of course, didn't, and the Maori Party didn't. Sean,
kind of condemning is not, in my view, good enough.
Yeah, okay.
It's not leadership.
Yeah, that's right. That's like saying anti-Semitism. It's not that great. I don't want to go any further than that, but it's not great, is it? Look, the other thing that I was kind of heartened by, a couple of weeks ago we interviewed Melissa Darby, once her story prevention officers, the public servants who try and stop independently appointed or politically appointed commissioners actually talking to the news media. Once we got through that, we had this really good conversation with Melissa Darby that a lot of people felt positive about her and her attitudes as the new race relations conciliator. And yesterday, I think it was, we had Stephen Rainbow on, and the Human Rights Commission actually came out and said, this needs to stop, Mr. Minto needs to stop, this isn't what New Zealand is. And it was unambiguous and it was really clear what he was saying. And I think probably personally Stephen Rainbow would have wanted to go further. It is kind of encouraging to see, isn't it, Oliver, that we might have some public commissars, and whether you like the idea of them or not, who are more reflective of what I would call a mainstream New Zealand sensibility.
I completely agree. And as I mentioned, I attended the Holocaust memorial event, and Stephen Rainbow was one of the speakers. I mean, the government had speakers too. So we heard statements from Winston Peters, from Christopher Luxon, and from Nicola Willis, and they were all very good, by the way. But Stephen Rainbow's speech was on a completely different level, and he really called out the anti-Semitism that is happening in New Zealand these days. And so his statement then about the John Minto initiative actually didn't surprise me at all, because it was completely in line with his extremely strong speech. I encourage you to get hold of that speech that he gave to the Holocaust Memorial Day. That was an outstanding contribution to national dialogue, and I wish more people would know about it.
Do you feel, Mark, like some of these institutions, and we can look at the Waitangi Tribunal as well, and the change in membership that is underway there under the new government, and it looks like this coalition government does recognise the temperature-setting role that government appointments have in various key positions, and they're looking at changing them.
Yeah, they're rolling it back. It started at the top, didn't it, with the State Services Commission? And quietly, when you're considering Paul Goldsmith's appointments, his portfolios seem to cover quite a few of these appointments. They're quietly rolling back the more woke aspects of those public positions. And in my brief dealings with Stephen Rainbow, he's a very able and considered person, and I think a tremendous appointment, and fair-minded and fair-handed.
Yeah. The Waitangi Tribunal, I think, is slightly more problematic. And a lot of people think we should just get rid of it. And I'm not sure, what's going to happen in the future with the new people we've got on it. And I mean, I think particularly about Prebble and Mark as people on the Waitangi Tribunal. Is the government trying to get it to self-sabotage, do you think, Oliver, the Waitangi Tribunal?
No, I wouldn't call it self-sabotage. I think they would probably call it bringing in some balance and appointing people like Philip Crump onto the tribunal. Yeah. And as you said, I mean, there is a legitimate question out there whether the tribunal is still needed, whether there still is a place for the tribunal. But at the very least, it should be a balanced organization, and I think the appointments probably lead it in that direction.
Yeah. We've, of course, also, guys, had the start of submissions on the Treaty Principles Bill. And if you watch mainstream media, it's all about basically a chance for people to say how racist the government is. Young James Meagher is the MP who has to chair that committee. Firstly, I want to ask you, Mark, what do you think of the mainstream media coverage you've seen of the beginning of that submission process?